Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the first ever Believe Wrestling podcast. I am here with my co-host, Miss Destiny Diamond. Miss Diamond, how are you doing this evening?
Hello, August. It is such an honor to be here tonight. It is good to be back doing what we do best and doing what we love the most, talking wrestling, talking shit, and just having the time of our lives.
It is true. Those are our favorite things. But we got some big things popping tonight. We are talking about WrestleMania 41 predictions and spoilers because we've never been wrong before.
Oh, that's right.
Let's just get into it. So WrestleMania Vegas, Miss Destiny Diamond is actually going to be present in person for this event. How pumped are you for that?
I am so stoked for this because I had the honor of being in attendance for both WrestleMania 30 and WrestleMania 32, but I could not go another year without attending WrestleMania. It's been 9 years, and I'm ready to be back in attendance, especially for the witnessing of the GOAT winning his 17th World Championship.
Well, before we get there, we got to talk about Night 1, Match 1. Now, I don't know if this is the official order, but this is kind of how it's been formatted on a lot of sites. And a lot of people are saying up first is actually going to be Gunther versus Jey Uso. The Ring General versus Main Event. And how are you feeling? I got a lot of mixed feelings about this match. I'll be honest with you.
I'm not going to lie, I really do too, because on one hand, I love how much of a fan favorite Jey Uso has become. I loved him winning the Rumble. We haven't had a shock like that in quite some time. And I love everything that's going on with Jey Uso. However, I'm just not 100% sold the way I am with the Ring General Gunther, because this man, in using his own words, is the greatest gift that WWE has had. He truly has elevated this roster and this organization to a whole new level. He is badass, he is kick-ass, and this is sacred to him. I don't know who's walking away with the title, but I want to put my money on my man, Gunther.
I think that's a bold claim. For me, it ultimately comes down to, you look at both sides of it. And Jey has been on the cusp of winning the big ones so many times. From Money in the Bank matches to King of the Ring finals, to multiple world title matches. And every time he comes up short. And it's gotten to the point where this is really his last chance to win the big one. You can't have him win another Rumble match after this. You can't have him... You could maybe do something Money in the Bank, but ultimately it comes down to this. Like, they have to pull the trigger on Jey Uso if they ever want world champ Jey Uso. But at the same time, I think almost everybody expects Jey to win this match. And with the way it's been booked with him... Gunther absolutely decimating Jimmy Uso leading into this, what level of superstardom it would launch Gunther to if he retains clean and pins Jey Uso in the middle of the ring, the statement that would be, and the level of heel that would double down and make Gunther, I think is almost too tempting to pass up. So I think I'm gonna side with you here that I think Gunther should win. Not only do I think he's going to, I think he should. I think Jey Uso... The other big problem I have with Jey winning is it really hurts Jimmy, which I know that sounds weird, but Jimmy's already the other twin. And so if Jey Uso becomes a world champion, nobody's really going to take Jimmy seriously from this point on. The rift between them is already pretty big, and unless you do something and reunite them, then that Jimmy Uso can pretty much kiss that level of stardom goodbye.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I recently rewatched the Royal Rumble, and Jimmy just didn't have that star power, that aura about him in the way that Jay does. No disrespect to Jimmy. I do love him. Don't love the nickname Big Jim. This man is entertaining. This man is hilarious. I really do love Jimmy. But at the same time, you put this strap on Jay, I don't see it ever happening for Jimmy, at least not for a long time with the way things are going. Also, with Jay, if they are going to pull the trigger, the time is now, especially with how Gunther decimated and basically murdered Jimmy right in front of him.
Yeah. So I think we've pretty much wrapped this up. Is this, if you had your choice of not just who you think is going to win, who do you want to win this match?
Oh, it's easily Gunther, because
She's
is
a hater.
just so old school, which is something that is really missing from WWE right now. I'm a huge fan of old school. My dad has taught me so much and shown me so much because he's been a fan since he was basically born, and I've been a fan because of him. So just seeing the attributes of the stars of back in the day, just seeing Gunther, the way that he shines, he truly is honoring the legacy of this title and other world titles of old.
I will say, me and Miss Destiny Diamond went to college together, and she's been an Uso hater from day one. I have always loved my Usos. I've been down since day one-ish. I think they are legitimately, if not just in the conversation, but they have a legitimate claim as the greatest tag team of all time. I really, really love the Usos. And I would really love to see the reuniting, and I think the bloodline is going to be in a very interesting place post-WrestleMania. All the individual members, and that will come up later on in this predictions, but are you ready to move to match 2 of night 1?
Almost, but I just thought of something that not enough people are talking about. I believe it was just over a week ago. Jey Uso was having a tag team match. I believe it was against A-Town Down Under. And he was going to have a surprise tag team partner. And people are thinking, they're speculating, there were names being thrown out there from other promotions, NXT, and all over the roster and whatnot. And as Jay's making his entrance down the ramp and not through the crowd, Jimmy sneaks up from behind him and is announced as Jay's tag team partner. And it was almost crickets. People were cheering, but it wasn't the big pop that I would have expected for a reunion like that, because Michael Cole even said on commentary, and it was over a year and a half since the last time they tagged. I would have thought that a moment like that would have been a lot more significant, but it wasn't. So I'm excited to see the fallout of WrestleMania for the Bloodline.
It's going to be interesting, but you know what else is going to be interesting? That is Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano, which I have so
many thoughts right now. I have so many thoughts and opinions, because this is just getting under my skin. Our star, Chad Gable, is once again pushed off to the sidelines and doesn't have a match at WrestleMania. However, this brand new newcomer luchador, El Grande Americano, just comes out of nowhere and steals a WrestleMania match from Chad Gable against one of the greatest of all time. And not just that, but the greatest luchador of all time, the greatest high flyer of all time. It's a disgrace.
Are you really doing this?
Oh, I am so doing this.
Okay, first off, did he just make his debut? Yes. But we have seen this man is historically one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. We've seen the pictures. This man is Mexican-American culture. He is El Grande Americano. So don't pretend like he's some brand newcomer. This is Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. That's what this is. This is the grand poobah. This man deserves this spot. And Chad Gable himself has said, although he is upset about missing the card this year, he is very happy that this man can shine in this spot against Rey Mysterio.
I would just like to respectfully argue that this is not Cody versus Seth because we've never seen El Grande Americano in a WWE ring before this past month. Just saying.
But then again, I would argue we had never seen Cody Rhodes. We had saw Dashing Cody Rhodes, we had seen Stardust, and then we saw Legacy Cody Rhodes. But we didn't get to see, like, Mega Star Cody Rhodes.
That was the first time us getting the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes.
That's the words I was looking for.
Agree with you on that.
All jokes aside here, I see this match going one of two ways. Obviously. I think the argument can be made for Chad Gable, El Grande Americano, needs this win. He really needs some momentum behind him. However, Rey Mysterio, I'm kind of shocked he's still going. When he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, I think that was 2 years ago. I think a lot of people thought that was kind of his Ric Flair swan song. Like, he gets inducted here, and then he retires the next night. But then he just kept going. And I think people keep expecting. But you have to ask the question eventually, when is this man going to be done? And I think that day is coming sooner rather than later. And I think how I see this match playing out, and I pray that I'm right, is some tomfoolery regarding a mask. We've seen I don't think it's a roll of quarters. I don't know what it is. But El Grande having the metal plating thing in his head in his past couple matches. And I think that is definitely going to come to terms here in this match. And what I want more than anything, if I had one decision to make at WrestleMania, it would be this. I would have Rey have this match won and decides to unmask El Grande Americano to get the plate out of the forehead. And as he pulls the mask off, El Grande Americano has a second mask on underneath. Just like Rey Mysterio did against Chris Jericho in 2009 during their feud. And if that happens, I would die. That would be everything I've ever wanted in my life. It would mean the world to me. I ultimately think Rey Mysterio is going to lose, but I think he's going to unmask El Grande Americano in the final of the match, and I think that's going to cost him the victory. And Chad Gable is going to be happy with the win and kind of throw it in Rey Mysterio's face that he let this whole mask thing cost him in the grandest stage of them all.
I could not agree more. I definitely think, especially after the last 2 years, because correct me if I'm wrong, Rey Mysterio has had back-to-back wins at WrestleMania. So in my opinion, it's time for him to take the L and elevate another star by giving them the victory in this, especially one as big a star and with as big a potential as Chad Gable has. I have to agree with you also that an unmasking needs to happen, but I couldn't tell you if it's going to happen during the match or after the match.
The War Raiders versus...
Get it right.
New Day!
Hooks.
I've been a massive fan of the New Day. I wasn't a huge fan initially, but it was that, ironically, their feud with the Usos that culminated in the Hell in a Cell match and all of that it just slingshotted these two to the absolute top of my greatest tag teams of all time list. And I've seen a lot of wrestling, but the longevity of these teams are insane. And the fact that the New Day, I love this heel turn. I think this went so unexpected, them splitting from Big E in the way they did and reuniting, as opposed to everybody thought it was going to be a splitting of the team and Kofi was going to be a babyface and Xavier was going to be the heel. And I love the fact that both of them turned on Big E and they were like, you're to blame for our problems. Now the question stands, does Big E make an appearance here?
Ooh, that is something I didn't even think about. And I would love that more than anything because I want nothing but the best for that man. He is such a wonderful talent. He is so incredible. He is such a good person. I would just love to see him make more appearances and not just on kickoff shows. Here's my thing about this version of the New Day. I was like you, where I wasn't a fan initially, but they definitely sucked me in with their charisma and their talent. However, I was at the Raw in Seattle when they turned heel. And if I can be honest, I'm not loving how it's going because I'm just not buying what they're selling. Like, I get it. Like, they're trying, but I don't believe that they believe the words that are coming out of their mouth.
I think that's fair.
It's hard for me to get sucked into it. You know, it's hard for me to get sucked into it and to actually believe the story they're trying to tell. Now, I will say they're doing their best. They're really doing an amazing job getting the boos that they so desperately trying to get. And I mean, they are saying the right things. They're doing the right things. For me and you as a theater major, I feel like we are missing that key component of believability and authenticity and a true connection to the story. Now, with the Viking Raiders, excuse me, I did it too. The War Raiders. These are two badass men that overcame horrific injuries and are just coming out looking like badasses. They aren't a joke anymore. I am loving the success that they are currently having, and I want to see it continue, and I want to see them continue to put on kick-ass matches.
The one thing that leads me to think, because I always overthink in terms of wrestling, and the fact that the SmackDown Tag Team division is it's stronger than it's been in a long time right now. You have like the odd couple pairing of Carmelo Hayes and The Miz, kind of. But at the same time, you also have like you got some of the best teams in the game right now, Dawkins and Ford.
Yeah. My dog, you have Dawkins and Ford, you have the Street Profits. You have Gargano and Ciampa in DIY. You have Motor City Machine Guns.
Crazy.
For crying out loud. Yeah. Like, come on. Who would have ever thought we would see that? I can't remember. I feel like A-Town Down Under are on SmackDown, but make sporadic appearances on Raw. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But the SmackDown... Los Garzas, what is it? Legado del Fantasma, that's what they're called now. But dude, I saw Berto
Pretty Deadly
on a stellar match.
Pretty Deadly?
Pretty Deadly. I saw Berto put on a stellar one-on-one match with Rey Fenix on SmackDown. I was there just this past Friday. And let me tell you, that man is underutilized. I need to see more of that man, and I need to see him shine because his talent is unparalleled. I don't really like Legado del Fantasma, but I want to see more of him. I need more Berto, but I also need them to change his name back to Humberto Carrillo because what is Berto?
I think who is Rey Fenix? Not who is Rey Fenix. Sorry. My whole thing is Raw's tag team division needs a step up. You have the New Day, which is one of the greatest tag teams of all time. You have the War Raiders, who are making a big splash right now, and then that's kind of it. There are some other teams, but there's been none that have really been booked. And so I think you have the heel New Day, and everybody's asking, why is this match on WrestleMania? Like, this is a Raw match. And I think, personally, the reason it is on this card is because of Big E. I think... The only reason this match would be on the card at WrestleMania over the SmackDown tag team titles, which everybody thought, which could still be added last minute if they wanted to. But I think the reason why they're putting this match on WrestleMania is because there's going to be a Big E appearance. And I think Big E is going to do what he said he was going to do. And I think he's going to swerve us all and join the New Day as a heel. And I think you're going to have heel New Day. I think now is the time to double down. I think if he looks at them and says, no, you guys were right, he gets them the win at WrestleMania. It gives the War Raiders an out as to why they lost. But at the same time, then on the next Raw, then you can have the reunion of Rey Fenix and Penta. And now you have heel New Day versus the Lucha Bros, which is one hell of a way to kick off your Raw tag team division with a much needed boost.
Look at the two women we have in front of us. Goddesses, perfection, stars. These two women, Jade Cargill and Naomi, are two not just megastars, but these women have transcended wrestling and are so multifaceted, so multi-talented. It is absolutely insane.
I would like to... I love Naomi. I think it was WrestleMania 33 where she was SmackDown Women's Champion and she did the gauntlet match kind of thing. Yes, okay. So it was a six-pack challenge and Naomi defeated Alexa Bliss, who was the champion going into the match. Becky Lynch, Carmella with James Ellsworth. That's pretty good. Mickie James and Natalya by submission. Criminally, this match only got 5 minutes and 35 seconds of match time. That's crazy.
Joking. Was it on the kickoff show, the pre-show, or was it on the main card?
It was the second to last match right before Roman Reigns Undertaker. So this was like the right between Brock Lesnar Goldberg and Roman Undertaker match. Criminal. But from this match, this was like Naomi was probably Becky Lynch made sense to win. Alexa Bliss made sense to win. Natalya, I didn't really buy. Mickie was like, okay, they could do something interesting because she was doing the whole thing with Alexa. And then Carmella was kind of like with James Ellsworth, they were doing that whole story. So Carmella made sense, but never in a million years that I think Naomi was walking out as champion. And the second she won, I became a massive Naomi stan. I was like, damn, she proved me wrong, and I've never been more happy for that. Also, the fact that this is the first singles women's match in WrestleMania history. Technically, WrestleMania 22 did have a single women's match that wasn't for a title. That was the second caveat.
It was a stipulation, but it was a stipulation match, though. It was a bra and panties match.
It was not. It was an evening gown match.
It was a pillow fight match. Excuse me.
Thank you. WrestleMania 22 is my favorite WrestleMania, so...
I thought 20 was. Well, WrestleMania 20 has your favorite match.
Has my favorite match. WrestleMania 22 is just my favorite overall.
Gotcha. Okay.
It had everything except Batista.
God.
Batista was hurt. And Eddie Guerrero was dead, so that also kind of sucked.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That was a downer. Now giving the women the spotlight they deserve here, people doubted Triple H and this feud. They said they were drawing it out too long. This is what Triple H does best, is draw out things too long and somehow re-add that importance back to them. And Naomi has been giving the performance of a friggin' lifetime with this. The promos just a couple weeks ago between her and Bianca were so stellar, where she was just begging her to take her side, and then Bianca standing off and essentially giving Jade permission to beat the shit out of Naomi. I can't wait for this match. This match is going to be so... I hope it's so good. Both of these women, at times, they get... it's one of those things where if you put them against the wrong person that doesn't mesh well with their style, you can tell there's some miscommunication issues, and I really hope that isn't the case, because this match has the possibility to just take the fucking cake at WrestleMania.
I could not agree more. These two women here are two of the biggest stars this industry has, and it's undeniable at this point. I have to tell you, I hope that these women have the match of the weekend so they can take all those damn comments from the internet and shove them down those trolls' throats. Because like you said, everybody was like, I'm bored. This is going on too long. I stopped caring months ago, yada, yada, yada. But for it all to culminate in that moment at the beginning of the Elimination Chamber, there was not a more perfect moment for it to be done, nor was there a more perfect way to do it. Because the way that Jade came out looking like a freaking Sith Lord, and you have Naomi just standing there like, ha ha, Liv's gonna get it, and Liv is terrified out of her mind, only for Jade to go after Naomi. Also
so
for
good.
Bianca to pull out the victory even through all those emotions. Props to Bianca. But these women told a story unlike any other that I've seen in recent history, especially in the women's division. And also, I just want to applaud all of them for the talent that they possess. Like you said, that promo between Naomi and Bianca a few weeks ago, give them their Oscar now. And also, Jade is just a freaking megastar with so much untapped potential and so much underutilized talent. I will say, I haven't really loved her first year here, but I want to see her kick Naomi's ass. Show everybody how good she truly is and run the women's division this year.
I agree with everything you're saying, except I think this is Naomi's match to win.
I know it is, but I don't want it to be. Because, like I said, Jade's a star. Jade's a future WrestleMania main eventer, and you can quote me on that. Jade versus Bianca or Jade versus Charlotte Flair will main event WrestleMania within the next 5 years because she is that good, she is that talented, she is that charismatic, and she has that aura about her that no one else on the women's roster has.
She does.
Naomi's a star. I will absolutely never deny that. But it's time to strap the rocket to Jade, and it was time a year ago, and it's a shame it's taken this long.
See, but I think if you're going to strap the rocket to Jade, I think you do it in the biggest way possible. And I think you do that in terms of winning the belt at WrestleMania, winning the Royal Rumble, or winning Elimination Chamber. I think this time next year, it is going to be Jade versus whoever the champion is, and Jade is going to be taking it home. However, if she wins this match here, the story's over, and she has nowhere to go until the Rumble, unless you put her in the title match now. And I think that robs her of her superstardom moment next year. And so I think if you give this win to Naomi here, and you don't even have to push this feud further. You can have something else come up. You can do, I would love to see Nia Jax versus Jade. Have Nia come back. Because we talked about this, and it pisses me off that we weren't doing the podcast then. But right after Elimination Chamber, we talked about, or maybe it was right after the Rumble. One of the two we talked, and I mentioned, what is Nia Jax doing for WrestleMania? I said because it was right after the Rumble, because they did that huge spot where she got the record for most eliminations at once or something like that. And I said, what are they doing with Nia at Mania? Because if they don't book her, it just wastes that. Like, they need to capitalize on this momentum of Queen of the Ring, of becoming the champion, of doing all of this. And instead of doing that, she's off of Mania this year, which I understand, but at the same time, now all that momentum is wasted. Because when she comes back, no one's going to remember the Rumble moment. They're going to remember she was just world champion, but the Rumble thing, the Queen of the Ring, none of that matters now. LA Knight, yeah, versus Jacob Fatu.
Yeah.
I think this should be a squash match. I think this should be a WrestleMania 12 Triple H versus Ultimate Warrior. Sorry, Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus the Ultimate Warrior, where they should stand nose to nose. I think LA Knight should hit, what does he call it, the BFT? Should hit a BFT on Jacob Fatu, kind of taunt to the crowd. Jacob pops up, hits a couple finishers, and 1, 2, 3. I think this match should be over. I'm not a huge LA Knight fan. I do like him. I just think it's the fact that it's again, it comes down to age. And we've talked about this. He's 42 years old, which isn't awful. That's not super old, but it's at the point where if they would have pushed him 2 years ago to Mr. Money in the Bank or something, like they did with Damian Priest, he could be on that level, but they didn't, and now it's, if they put the cart behind him now, it's going to take 2 or 3 years of look at Drew McIntyre. He beat Brock Lesnar in 2020. for the championship, and we still didn't really see him as a main guy until 2023, 2024. It takes 3 or 4 years of solid booking behind that person, not necessarily winning, but just being in those main matches. Damian Priest is just now kind of getting to that level, and it's been a year since his victory. And so you look at it, and it's, if he wins the world title, he's going to be 45, 46 by the time he's a mega star, ironically. So
well, I have to respectfully disagree in that regard, because I think it was very similar to Damian Priest last year. They put the world title on him. Now, was he the guy? No. Was he the biggest star on the show? No. But as somebody who has seen LA Knight live multiple times, he gets reactions that Damian Priest doesn't even exist compared to those reactions. This man is already a megastar. Now, is he the top guy? No. Nobody ever will be, as long as Roman's around, as long as Cody's around, and as long as a lot of those other well-rounded superstars. Seth. But like those guys that have been around and been the guy for years and have been given the proper push that they have been, until they're gone, LA Knight won't be the number 1 or top 5 guy. However, similar to Damian Priest last year, I truly believe that LA Knight can hold a world title in 2025, 2026, and I think that this match is the way that we get the Money in the Bank briefcase where it has always belonged, in the hands of the megastar LA Knight. Yeah. So I 100% agree with you. Jacob Fatu is leaving WrestleMania with the United States Championship. Whether it's a squash match or not, I don't know, but it is in order to set up LA Knight for a mega push.
That's so crazy that you brought up him winning Money in the Bank, because I kind of have the same, like, inkling of an idea that if he's going to win Money in the Bank, it's this year. This is the year they have to pull the trigger on it. This is the match you've all been waiting for, and I say you all. I'm talking to Miss Destiny Diamond. This is like,
yes,
this is her. If she could have one wish in life, it would be to watch this match. These are her two favorites.
True. This is me versus me. This is my GOAT versus the woman that I get compared to on a daily. Charlotte Flair, in my opinion, is the greatest of all time. No comparison. And Tiffany Stratton is just such an insane star, from her charisma, her character that she has. Her in-ring abilities are second to none. I just love seeing these two women shine. And I'm excited to see them tear it up at WrestleMania. This past Friday on SmackDown, I was there again in Seattle, and Charlotte came out and absolutely whooped the holy hell out of Tiffany Stratton, and it was amazing to see, because I know that there are some people that are kind of dulling on this feud, but they really reignited it with the brawl that they had.
I think Charlotte kind of has a history of going into business for herself. In terms of, like, we saw it with the infamous title exchange between her and Becky Lynch. We've seen it, her and Nia Jax had that moment during their match as well, and we've seen it a couple times rear its ugly head. And I think as long as that doesn't happen in this match, this has the potential to be one of the greatest women's matches in wrestling history, not just WrestleMania history. But at the same time, this has the potential to be one of the biggest train wrecks in wrestling history. It's going to take two to tango on the grandest stage of them all. And if they both don't come to play ball, it's not going to be pretty. It'll be fun. It's not going to be pretty.
Well, you talked about Charlotte going into business for herself, and I think that if anybody is going to stand up to Charlotte going into business for herself and put it down, it's gonna be Tiffy. We saw it with the promo battle that they had, where Tiffy talked about 0-3 and Charlotte brought up Ludwig. If there is one person that can step up to Charlotte and get on her toes and say knock it off, or to dish it back to her to a high degree, it's Tiffany Stratton. She has had a meteoric rise to the top, and it's been beautiful to see, and it is so much deserved. I think that if they both put their egos aside, even if it happens partially into the match, I do see these two women having it click, and they both just go at it and have a barn burner of a match.
I certainly hope so. And depending on... Because they've both been pretty unprofessional throughout this build. And I think ultimately who wins this match depends on if they can be professional enough to make this a series of matches instead of a one-off match. If this is going to be a one-and-done thing, I think this has to be Tiffany's night. If they can somehow find the professionalism to CM Punk and Seth Rollins this, to CM Punk and Drew McIntyre this could be an all-time women's feud. And I would absolutely love nothing more than to see this feud actually get dragged out, to have Charlotte win at WrestleMania, have people absolutely hate her. And when I say win at WrestleMania, I don't mean babyface Charlotte beats heel Tiffany. I mean WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, to where it's a moment where they lay into it so much that it seems like Charlotte's going into business for herself and leaves a mess of Tiffany Stratton in the ring, to the point where Tiffany has this ultimate sympathetic feel to her, and Charlotte leaves a mega heel. And you let Tiffany have a couple months off to kind of... So when she comes back, she gets that babyface pop. People are pumped to see her. But at the same time, there's a lot... Charlotte's at the end of her rope here. She doesn't have a lot of returns left, but there are so many top women that are coming up now through the division, through the industry, that we need to see Charlotte Flair versus Julia. We need to see... I would love nothing more than a mini 1 or 2 month feud between Charlotte defending her title against, Roxanne Perez would be incredible. Charlotte, Roxanne, yes. And then when she finally soundly beats Roxanne gets that extra exposure. And those were the final two in the Rumble. Need I remind you, if you want a little history there.
So good.
And then you get the big babyface pop return once she beats Roxanne, and now she's back, and then you can build to SummerSlam. That's what I want out of this match. But are they going to have the professionalism, or are they unfortunately going to Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan themselves, and it just becomes the one-off, quote-unquote, dream match? I certainly hope not. It's the match, ladies and gentlemen. The main event of night one. Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns versus CM Punk.
Who would have ever thought in a million years? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be very transparent with you all right now. I still can't believe we have CM Punk in a WWE ring right now. But the fact that they have told this story so beautifully, the hatred between Rollins and Punk, the hatred between Roman and Punk, and the hatred between Roman and Rollins. It's all there, and it's being told so beautifully. I can't tell you a time that a story was told so masterfully since the Bloodline itself.
This has been my biggest gratitude towards Triple H taking over, because Vince didn't really... He utilized Seth Rollins, but Seth was always so start and go with Vince. It was always very... He would put a mountain of momentum behind him, and then he would just completely cold block, and then Seth would just be flopping, doing nothing. And since Triple H has taken over, I've had PTSD in moments. And I've spoken with Miss Destiny Diamond here. Like, leading into the Royal Rumble, I said, I don't think Seth's going to win. I said, I just hope he doesn't get, like, fed to somebody. I want Seth to matter. Seth is one of my all-time favorites. I think he is performing on a level that nobody else really is in terms of character work, in-ring storytelling, in-ring ability, and also just the WrestleMania 40 forever changed my opinion on Seth Rollins. I think that was his night more than anybody else's. And the fact that he could tell such a convincing story in the main event, when it was him coming out to... He didn't throw a punch. He got in the ring and got hit with a punch, and then got hit with a steel chair. And that was all he did, and he was the one I was thinking about when I walked away that night. The amount of insane storytelling there is just, you can't make up somebody that good. And so and then you look at the other competitors in this match. CM Punk, the storytelling between him and Paul Heyman, and the fact they literally have a promo of Paul looking at Punk and saying, I will be there, I will walk you to the ring when you main event your first WrestleMania from fucking 10 years ago is crazy. It is insane that can now come back full circle and it can tie in. And Roman has been doing so good with this tribal chief character and how he's playing this tweener role perfectly to where he hasn't changed. He didn't come back and apologize. He came back and assumed his family would forgive him, and he never said, I'm sorry. Look at the relationship he had with Jey Uso and how Jey Uso joined the War Games match. Roman never apologized to Jey. He never had that moment where he was like, Jey, I'm sorry, I'll change. That didn't happen. Roman is... And the way he always plays, I can go on all day about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and how it's one of my favorite feuds in wrestling history. And by the time all is said and done, it's probably going to be my favorite feud in wrestling history because these two have the storied career against each other in ways that not a lot of superstars get to. So I've been ranting. I'll gather my thoughts for a moment while I let you kind of talk about your thoughts.
No, you are perfect. And you mentioned the Royal Rumble and how you didn't want Rollins to be just fed to somebody. Can we talk about how beautifully executed it was? From who eliminated him to how he handled it and how he reacted and how everyone else around him reacted. Now, Punk eliminated Rollins and Reigns at the same time. Then Punk was eliminated right next to them by Logan Paul. These three men are all looking at each other. They are all together in this moment. Roman says, what are you doing? We just teamed together. What are you doing? Stomp. Gone. Done. Rollins is pissed, not only that he was eliminated, but that he was eliminated by the man he hates more than anyone else on this earth, alongside the man who is number 2 for who he despises and has the most history with. Rollins played it perfectly. All three men played it perfectly. And for Roman to come back the way he did and to decimate everyone in his path and the way that he is just carrying himself and how Paul Heyman betrayed him and now Punk with that sly smirk that he has with Paul Heyman in his corner and the antics that he pulled on Monday as Paul Heyman was waiting for his tribal chief. This story is a masterpiece. This is a gorgeous quilt that is being beautifully sewn together by the mastermind that is Paul Heyman, and I cannot wait to see what happens in this match.
The fact... I wish they played a little more into the fact that Seth Rollins has Roman Reigns' number, and Seth Rollins knows that he has Roman Reigns' number. My favorite part about the Royal Rumble match wasn't the elimination. It was the fact that Roman failed to eliminate Seth moments before the dump over happened. Seth has Roman scouted. If you look at every one of their major moments where they fought each other in the ring in a big match situation, Seth Rollins has won every time. During Roman Reigns' historic 1,316-day title reign, he lost one title match, and that match was to Seth Rollins by disqualification because Seth got so in his head, Roman refused to break the rope count and got himself disqualified with the guillotine choke. Seth is the only one, and I wish they would have brought that up all the times he threw in Seth's face. He's like, you have the secondary title. Your title doesn't mean anything. I beat all the guys challenging for your title. And I wish they would have brought it up, the fact that he never beat Seth Rollins. I think there was a random match on Raw or SmackDown or something where he's beaten Seth once or twice. But anytime the chips have been down and the match has mattered, there was the historic night where all three members of the Shield won the title on the same night. Roman went in as champion, lost clean to Seth, and then Dean cashed in on Seth.
Oh, the greatest
Seth,
night in history of wrestling.
you look at the first gauntlet match in terms of the Elimination Chamber participants, which has kind of become... It became, I don't think they did it this year or the last couple years, but it was a mini tradition for like 3 or 4 years in a row where they would do a gauntlet the week before the Elimination Chamber with all the members. And the first gauntlet they did was the leading into WrestleMania 34, where it was the 7-man Elimination Chamber, which was, I think, Miz, Finn Balor, Rollins, Strowman, Cena, Roman, and I don't remember who else, or maybe I just named them all, but Seth started the match against Roman and won. And then Cena was number 3, and Seth beat Cena. It was, and Elias was the other one, now that I'm thinking about it. So it's just insane to think, like, every time these men have faced... The WrestleMania 40, of course, Seth's team lost to Roman's team in the main event of Night 1. However, Roman was not the one who scored the pinfall, nor was Seth the one who took the pinfall. The Rock pinned Cody Rhodes. And Seth Rollins was the star of that match, in my opinion. And I might be biased, but if you look at every opportunity, every moment Seth could have interfered, he did. He was the reason Roman speared The Rock. He was the one who saved Cody's ass countless times that night. And it was just so beautiful. And that's it's just... The fact that Seth constantly has Roman's number, and the fact that Seth has been the one, his whole reputation, the reason the fans turned on him is because he's WWE's biggest supporter. He's been the one who, the whole reason the internet turned against him was because he went after Will Ospreay. When Will said he's the greatest wrestler in the world, and Seth essentially said, hey, kid, when you come to my company, then you can say you're the greatest wrestler in the world. And people were like, screw Seth Rollins, I hate him, and they turned him heel. After that, and the whole debacle with The Fiend, which that match is a gripe in its own. That match was actually really good, and people don't know what they're talking about. And I will die on that hill, but we'll talk about that one day. But the fact that Seth has always been WWE's biggest supporter and saying this is the company, and now CM Punk, who spent years tearing down this company, comes back and he wants the main event of WrestleMania. He wants to come in and pretend like he hasn't been trying to tear this company down for years. I love the hatred that Seth has for the ideology of who CM Punk was. And the fact that Punk is just here to right some wrongs. And the promo that Punk cut where he said, he's like, look, Seth, I didn't like you, and I wanted to fight you because you had a championship. He goes, you're not the world champion anymore, so I don't give a shit about you. And Seth had to attack him.
You're not on my mind at all.
Exactly.
Yep. So, fun fact about that promo, it was on Raw in Seattle. I was there, and it was my very first time seeing CM Punk in person. The best part of all of it, because I love Seth. I enjoy Punk. I like Roman. But the fact that Punk looked at Rollins and says, you're not on my mind at all. I don't think about you at all. It was just so perfect. So perfect. Chef's kiss, no notes.
So I will say the big fan theory going into this match, what everybody's saying is Paul Heyman is going to turn and align with Seth freaking Rollins, and Seth is going to walk away the victor of this match. Destiny, what do you think about that theory? Do you agree, or do you have your own to pose?
If I may say, I think the internet has gotten into my brain too much. I think I spend a little too much time reading what fans think is going to happen because I'm almost sold. Because Paul owes Seth a favor now because he didn't stomp his head in next to Punk. I will admit, other than Seth's star power, I don't see a reason for Heyman to go to him, other than owing him a favor, and other than his star power. Here's my thing. Seth can do it all. As you said, he's phenomenal in the ring. The storytelling is there. That man is a god on the microphone. He does not need Heyman. other than to get under the skin of his two most hated people in this world, which could be the motivation. I don't see the motivation on the side of Heyman to align with Rollins. I'm not sold on that theory, but I also don't hate it. Your thoughts on this theory?
I have a lot of thoughts on this theory. The thing that I feel like a lot of people do is they get so caught up in the match in front of them and what's the most interesting thing. And I feel like that's never the question. The question is always, what's the most interesting thing coming out of this match? Because this triple threat match is expertly designed. We talked earlier about how WrestleMania should feel like the end destination. A triple threat match is the exception to that because you cannot end blood feuds in a triple threat. So, what is coming out of this? Which two superstars are pairing off to fight once this triple threat match is said and done? Is it going to be Seth Rollins and CM Punk writing their final chapter? I don't think so. Is it going to be Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins? I don't think so. Because I think Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins has that interesting story where I think they should be done after this. And then in 2 years' time, they could tell another tale and keep going like that until they eventually set up to retire. And then I think you can finally do Roman, Seth, and tell the Batista Triple H story of you've never beaten me when it mattered. And that's when you can finally do their big feud blow off. And so that leaves Roman Reigns, CM Punk feuding after this match. And in terms of that, if it's Roman Punk, there's no title involved. It almost feels like this is where you need Paul Heyman, is with these two, not Seth Rollins, which is why I think Seth Rollins wins this match because of Paul Heyman indirectly. I think Paul Heyman is going to be involved in this. It is going to be a moment where Paul is trying to make up his mind between Roman and Punk, and both of them need his help, and he can't decide, and Rollins is the one to capitalize, because Rollins has been overlooked this entire feud since these two locked up. It has always been these two staring each other down while Rollins is poking and prodding and pressing buttons and getting them fired up, trying to face each other. And I got a really bold prediction, and I'm going to hold off until the end of this. I will say, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that for now. I think Seth Rollins has this match. I want Seth Rollins to have this match, but I think Seth Rollins has this match. And I think in a year and a half, you can finally write the final chapter of Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and do it either at Mania next year, or if you don't want to tie up Punk at several Manias like that, you could do it at SummerSlam next year as well. In a situation like that, coming off of Mania for the world title, something like that, where it makes sense for them to be feuding again, and they get to say, "Hey, we never really closed this chapter, this book. We still got one more section to write," and all that history gets to come back one more time. But I think it's going to be Punk versus Roman after this match at Mania, and I think Seth is the one walking away as the winner.
Now, I have to say, this is the one match that I can't predict a winner. I hate to say it. I don't like that I have to say that, because I could see any man in this match walking away with it. I do think it probably will be Seth, because I just don't see it being Roman, and I don't see them giving it to Punk. However, I feel like this is one of those matches where it's going to be two men taking each other out, and the third capitalizes. I truly see Seth being the one that gets so heated with one of the other competitors that he fucks himself.
I could also see that. I just
think that he has that. I could also see that being Roman, because like you said, that's what happened last year. You know, he got so heated about how much he hated Seth that he lost his championship. So you know what? My bold prediction, just for the sake of arguing with you, while Seth could absolutely be the one walking out with the victory, I'm giving it to CM Punk, because Roman and Seth are going to get so into kicking the crap out of each other that they're going to forget about Punk, And Punk's going to capitalize because he has the in-ring IQ and he has Heyman.
WrestleMania Night 2. I didn't know where to put this match because obviously this match has been canceled, but Randy Orton, it has been stated he will compete here. And there has been some teases that it will either be, I almost said Adam Pearce. It will be Nick Aldis versus Randy Orton, or it will be Randy Orton versus possibly Solo Sikoa. Destiny, what are you feeling the direction is going for Randy Orton here?
I can only pray to God that it's not Solo Sikoa. I was, like I've already mentioned multiple times in this podcast, I was at SmackDown this past Friday when Solo interrupted Randy Orton. And the way that my heart dropped into my gut, I'm livid. I understand that Solo's a big star. I understand that they need to push him to the next level. However, this is WrestleMania, and I want to be entertained. And if you give me Randy versus Solo, I will not be entertained. I will go to the bathroom. I don't care if there's going to be an RKO out of nowhere. I will be bored, and I will be seated on a toilet, most likely. Now, I am absolutely intrigued by the potential of an in-ring debut by Nick Aldis. I don't see it happening, unfortunately, as much as I would love it, and the story is there, unless they do something major on Friday, which we will have to wait and see. But there are some other theories that I personally have had or heard. The big one that is in my heart is the potential for Sami Zayn. The man has been the star of this company for so many years now, and he's being left off the card. Now, to be fair, Kevin Owens murdered him in Canada at the Elimination Chamber. I get it. However, who better to replace Kevin Owens than the man that he tried to murder than Sami Zayn?
I mentioned...
I feel Sami Zayn is the go-to pick for this match.
I had mentioned on the phone with you recently that I feel like when Sammy comes back, this was before it was announced that Kevin was going to be off the card, that I mentioned that when Sammy comes back, I thought it was going to be a swerve and he was going to align with Kevin and be like, Kevin kind of showed me the light here in terms of, like, I got to get my head out of my ass, and if I'm ever going to be world champion, if anything's ever going to change for me, I got to be the one to take it. And Kevin showed that to me, and I thought they were going to reunite in that moment, and Sammy was going to turn heel. The other one I've kind of heard, which I didn't really even hear, like one or two people mentioned it on Twitter right when it was announced Kevin Owens was injured, is the possibility of Randy Orton versus Malachi Black.
That is exactly what I was going to say. That was the other rumbling that I had heard. The much anticipated return of Aleister Black, because how amazing of a match would that be? Those two are two of the best performers in this entire industry. They would absolutely tear the house down, and what a way to bring him back against the Viper.
I agree. My only issue is who loses if you do Malachi Black. It's the Samoa Joe situation where people wanted Samoa Joe to debut at number 30 in the Rumble. I don't remember if it was 2016 or 2017. It was 2017 because Roman was number 30 and people were pissed.
Roman came out at number 30 and we were all like, what? Because he was in a world title match earlier in the night. He shouldn't have been in the Rumble, but whatever.
Triple H mentioned, he said, look, if Samoa Joe comes out and debuts at number 30, then he should win the match. And that's why he wasn't in it, because they're not going to waste a number 30 appearance on Samoa Joe if he wasn't going to win. I'm Team Solo Sikoa. I was making some faces when you were talking ish about him. I love Solo. I think they kind of dropped the ball a bit with him. I think people genuinely forget. A little after Solo debuted, there was that promo that Roman did where I don't remember what the moment was, but Solo did something, and Roman almost looked afraid for a second. And everybody was losing their minds like, oh my God, Roman fears Solo. It was such a big moment, and I feel like we never really got that payoff. Yes, they fought, and yeah, Roman won, and that doesn't really matter. But I wanted a heel Roman Reigns versus a babyface Solo Sikoa. And that didn't happen. And I feel like you do Solo here because Solo loses, and now Solo is at a complete loss. I think after this, you have Jacob Fatu won earlier. I think the Tongas, the fucking twins nobody gives a shit about that aren't twins. I think they decide to leave Solo and they go with Jacob Fatu. And Jacob now has his little entourage, and I think Solo is left by himself. And I think Roman is kind of left by himself. And I think Jay is kind of left by himself. And Jimmy is, of course, injured. And I think this is where the bloodline needs to actually reform, because we had the mini reformation last year, and then they immediately resplit after Blood Games. After, what the fuck is it called? War Games.
War Games.
Thank you, William Regal. After War Games. And so I think now this needs to be all of the OG members of the bloodline, the original 4, need to be like Paul Heyman sides with CM Punk and they do their thing. And now Roman is alone, the Usos are alone, and everything needs to come to head, and then we can finally do The Rock Roman Reigns and start building to that. And that is what I want more than anything. And so I think having Solo here and Solo loses to Randy Orton, Randy gets a big win, and this is what pushes Solo to rock bottom, is him losing at WrestleMania, while Jacob Fatu wins at WrestleMania.
There was a time where Solo was being geared up to be the new tribal chief and the face of the bloodline and the face of the NOI family. But then Jacob Fatu signed with WWE. People completely forgot about Solo because of how damn good Jacob Fatu is. So maybe the story is exactly as you told, where Solo comes in, faces Randy. Randy gets a pretty easy victory. The Tongas leave Solo, leave him to be bum-ass Corbin 2.0, and he has to tuck his tail between his legs, go back to Roman, or whatever he may have to do. But it leads to a match between Jacob and Solo that we have all been craving.
And not only that, but you look at the dynamics then, and you have Rock versus Roman, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa versus the Usos, and you have Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa. Like, that's a Mania card right there. That's a hell of a show for WrestleMania 42. And that's what I absolutely love.
One family running the entire card, yeah.
So that is like so huge, and that is what I want it to build to. And then we can finally do this huge culmination where we can finally put the bloodline thing to rest. But I feel like they need to write this final chapter. And not like to rest like they all go separate ways and pretend it never happened. But to where it stops become this inner fighting thing, and they can go, the Usos can just be the Usos. They don't have to come out with Roman Reigns, or they don't have to be associated with that. But it can essentially culminate and finally have that moment where they all come together one more time and finally get the job done. And now they respect each other and they love each other. And if the moment ever comes in the future, they know they have each other's backs, as opposed to this bad blood and this, can I trust this person, can I not? And I think WrestleMania 42 is the time to do that in that way. So I am leaning a Randy Orton victory, hopefully over Solo Sikoa. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Solo was a fake out tease, and I think they are going to rug pull and have it be. I don't think it's going to be Nick Aldis. I do think it's going to be. I'm leaning it's probably going to be Malachi Black, but I would prefer that to be a debut after, and maybe align him in term like this. Wyatt Six needs something, right? They need either somebody to feud with or a more prominent person to be involved in the direction of. Alexa is going to be involved in that, and I think the idea of Alexa and Malachi getting involved with that could be very interesting if it's done properly. So fingers crossed that we can get something interesting going there.
As much as I would love to see Malachi Aleister Black come back, I don't see it being against Randy Orton. I am, again, Team Sami Zayn, and I see Sami Zayn going over Randy Orton.
That would be pretty crazy. And you know what else is pretty crazy? It is AJ Styles versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania.
Can we just talk about how this story isn't even being told by either of these men, and that it is solely resting on the shoulders of one Karrion Kross, of all people?
And this is where the most interesting aspects are. Have you seen the thing with Karrion Kross's hair?
I have, and I love that, myself included, nobody really caught on until the AJ Styles hairdo. Because, yes, we saw it with, what was it, McIntyre? We definitely saw, no, it was Xavier Woods, obviously, and it was also Sami Zayn. Those two, hair was mimicked. For some reason, I thought Drew was one, but no, I don't. I know that they had a clash, but I don't think that it had to do with this type of storytelling. But once the AJ face-off happened backstage and people actually took notice, then they started to dive deep and truly saw the puppetry and the mastery of Karrion Kross and his character.
I think Karrion has a part to play at WrestleMania. I think ultimately the question is, I feel like Logan needs a victory because Logan hasn't done anything. But then again, he was just U.S. champion. But it was so forgettable that I forget that he was just U.S. champion. But at the same time, this is former WWE World Heavyweight Champion AJ Styles, who I believe his last world title reign was 2019, 2018. This is the Ricochet Logan Paul match where you have two guys who can go. This can be a spot fest, but AJ Styles is smart enough to not just make it a spot fest and to rein in Logan Paul and actually deliver a measure of storytelling, which is needed. Logan Paul does best when he's against the CM Punks, when he's against the Seth Rollins. That he can go out there and tear down the house with Ricochet, but they get so invested in who's the more athletic and how crazy, what's the biggest OMG moment we can do, that they forget you have to capture the audience and keep them there, not just make them send out OMG tweets from their phone. And AJ Styles is so good at telling that story. And I think ultimately this is going to come down to Karrion Kross, and I think Karrion Kross versus AJ Styles is the better story leaving WrestleMania as opposed to Karrion Kross Logan Paul. So I think,
I mean, in my opinion, there is no Karrion Kross Logan Paul. It's always been AJ Styles. He's always been the target. We need that dark side of AJ Styles to reemerge in order for him to get another World Heavyweight Championship reign. This man has not been given any more world titles, and he so deserves them. Now, to be fair, he's had multiple injuries that have sidelined him for months, and I understand why you don't want to put a title on someone with a history of injuries like that. I get it. However, this is AJ Styles, and you said it yourself, spectacle. This match here is going to be nothing short of a spectacle, and this one, like I've said about others, this one has the potential to be the best match of the entire weekend and the show stealer, because Logan has that desire to be the number one most trending thing happening. How do you do that? Have a stellar match against AJ Styles. Nobody's going to stop talking about it. I will admit I disagree. I do think that his U.S. title reign was memorable just because he was holding it, and he took it all over the world. He took it to Puerto Rico. He took it to an interview with the President of the United States of America. He did so many things with this championship, and he had some stellar matches, and he's just such a dick that you love to hate him. He is an unforgettable competitor. And also the feud that he had with LA Knight, I believe, was so fantastic. And it led to LA Knight getting a title run that he has needed. He's deserved. And I feel like there's been such great storytelling from this man who only shows up at most. So I have all the faith in the world in this match. And I see the win going to AJ Styles, because not only does he need it, we need to see a new side of AJ Styles, and Logan Paul is the one that will bring that out of him, along with Karrion Kross, who is also helping to bring it out.
Okay. So your official vote is AJ Styles beats Logan Paul.
Correct.
I am going the opposite way. I think Karrion Kross is going to kind of cost AJ Styles here in the same way. This is going to be very similar to AJ Styles' Edge, in the sense, who was it? Priest? Who cost AJ Styles that match? Was it Damian Priest?
It was either Priest or Rhea. It must have been Priest, but I know Rhea was not far behind.
So I think it's going to be very similar to that situation here, and I do think AJ Styles is ultimately going to be cost this victory here, and Logan is going to kind of shimmy his way. It's post-WrestleMania season. I think Logan is going to focus his energy on the next thing outside of wrestling and kind of take a hiatus for the next couple months while AJ Styles kind of feuds with Karrion Kross. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Lyra Valkyria and Bayley. We kind of mentioned this a little earlier. I said the direction I think this is going to go. I think ultimately my opinion here is going to be Liv and Raquel retain, and I'm hoping Bayley turns on Lyra over Lyra turning on Bayley. I think either could be interesting, but I think we still need white meat babyface Lyra for a little bit longer before she kind of turns heel. I think Bayley is kind of best as a heel in this weird babyface state she's been in. It worked while she was the champion, but as soon as she lost the title and has been out of contention for the title, it's kind of been middling, and I think it's time for her to get that competitive edge back. And I think heel Bayley could be a cool way to go.
I would like to respectfully agree and disagree at the same time, because I 100% see Liv and Raquel retaining because of a blow-up between Lyra Valkyria and Bayley. The thing is, yes, it will be heel Bayley. Again, I agree. I respectfully disagree that babyface Bayley last year was a dull dud. I didn't think it fit. I didn't think it worked. I've never liked it. I have never been entertained by Bayley. I'm still not really entertained by Bayley. Does she have some great moments as a heel? Yes. I'm not a Bayley fan, but that woman needs to be a heel in order to get my attention and in order for me to pay attention to her. Otherwise, I don't care. At the Elimination Chamber, she was the first one eliminated in the ring, and I cheered because that is what she deserved for the work that she was putting in as a babyface. It just doesn't work. Lyra, I can see being a great heel sometime down the road, but it's time to give it back to Bayley so that she can be relevant once again.
Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre. I was so excited the second Drew McIntyre got eliminated from the Royal Rumble. I got pumped for this match. And I called Destiny and I said this match makes sense for a multitude of reasons. Because Drew has been saying, I hate Roman. This is all Roman's fault. It all happened at Clash of the Castle. That is when my career took a nosedive. That was my match to win, and ever since then, I have not been at peace. And until I get revenge on Roman Reigns, I will not be at peace. However, Roman is tied up for Mania for this year, and I also think for next year as well. And so Drew needs something to do in the meantime. And the fact that Damian Priest had just the most incredible year in 2024, and everybody's treating him like he's not one of the strongest book superstars of the past 2 years is insane to me. This man, this is literally supposed to be titans colliding. If anything, Damian should be the favorite going into this match because Damian doesn't lose and Drew always cost himself the victory. That is both of these guys' stories. Drew always gets in his own head and tries to go deeper to emotionally damage his opponent, and it always cost him the win. It happened with CM Punk, and it's happening again with Damian Priest. But the fact that built into this is, speaking of CM Punk, when Drew McIntyre won the world title from Seth Rollins last year, Damian Priest was the one who cashed in Money in the Bank and beat him for that title. Damian Priest ended that. But it's okay, because Drew McIntyre got his revenge, right? He went on, he won Money in the Bank, and he cashed it in on who? Damian Priest, which then he failed, and Damian retained his world title. That is 2 instances, and then the Royal Rumble happened, and that is now 3 instances where Damian Priest has cost Drew McIntyre the world championship. And the second this moment happened, this whole story clicked into place for me in just a beautiful, beautiful way. And I am so friggin' happy that these two get to showcase against each other. I think Drew McIntyre is an expert. He's an expert at working the audience into making them think. I don't think he was pissed that he was working Damian Priest, but he convinced the entire internet that he was. And it added so much more hype to this match in the back end because of it. Sorry I ranted, Destiny. The floor is yours.
Well, I would like to say, let the record show that I never disagreed with you for a moment. I've always known for this to be the match, and I've always been hook, line, and sucker, because the story that was told, like you said, starting at WrestleMania last year with Damian Priest cashing in on Drew McIntyre. And then, of course, fast forward, they had not one, I feel like at least 2 rematches for the title, right? But every time, Drew was unsuccessful. What's he going to do next? He wins Money in the Bank, cashes it in, again, fails. This should be haunting him more than it is. But of course, everything's Roman's fault. He's always in the back of Drew's mind. We all get that. But when the elimination happened at Royal Rumble, like you said, it clicked, it was revisited, and the match that technically happened last year is being revisited once again at WrestleMania this year, and I could not be more excited for it, especially because it's happening in a Sin City street fight.
Hey, it's gonna be good. Now, also, we both kind of skimmed over the fact that once again it doubled down and happened at Elimination Chamber, where Damian cost Drew McIntyre again. So, Drew McIntyre needs this win. I think he's going to get this win. But, I love this feud. I wonder what happens next. Drew McIntyre can go on and feud with pretty much anybody from this point. He's gotten to the point where he's that good. Damian Priest needs something to sink his teeth into. And I'm wondering what happens to him after WrestleMania. That is where my curiosity lies.
I couldn't agree more. Now, this is another one that I'm struggling because I want to see Priest win this match. I think that he needs it, but also Drew needs it. I would love nothing more than for Damian to win, because, like I mentioned, Drew isn't as upset about Damian Priest as I feel he should be. There should be a Roman Reigns level of hatred in Drew McIntyre's heart for this man, for a multitude of reasons that you and I have both covered multiple times. I would love to see Damian Priest win this match and have that trigger an even more slow descent into madness for Drew McIntyre.
We disagree here, and I will hold my tongue and explain why in just a little bit. Braun Breaker, Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, and Penta. I will say my initial thoughts on this match is I don't think Penta's going to win. The reason why,
agree.
I think if Rey Fenix was tied up for a little longer, I think Penta would win this match. But I think sooner rather than later, it's smarter to combine the brothers back together, because there are so many individual stars on the roster right now, and there are not a lot of tag team stars. So I think the smart thing to do is put these two together right now while there's not a strong tag division, and let them be these top level team. And then in 2 years' time, then you can kind of start splintering them off, much like we did with the Usos. Stuff like that, where you wait until there's gaps in the main event, and then you can kind of separate them out, as opposed to the top of the card is very crowded right now. And so I think Penta is going to be best with Rey Fenix. And so I do not think this is his time to shine in terms of the IC championship.
I have to say, though, I do worry about him getting put with Rey Fenix too soon, because then his legacy will be just another tag team guy. And I fear that, because right now he is one of the hottest superstars that we have right now. Everything about him and his presentation is beyond perfect. But I 100% agree with you that Penta will not be winning this match for a multitude of reasons. Number one, on Raw this past Monday, he was the one standing tall at the end of the brawl. That's never a good sign. He was made to look too good and too strong. Also, something that is important to note is that Finn Balor gave Penta his one and only pinfall loss in WWE in a tag team match. And Finn Balor eliminated Penta from the Royal Rumble.
Oh.
It hasn't really been explored enough for my liking. I see those two right there. That's gonna be something eventually.
I definitely think so. I think a very interesting, when is JD due back from injury?
This is a fantastic question that I don't know the answer to. I want to say within the next month or two.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I want to say he's definitely, like, from what I've read, and I really do not read much.
Nope, you're good.
For those of you that know
right,
me.
I got it pulled up.
But I do think, yeah. I think soon.
Because I do think Judgment Day in some form is going to be involved. I think JD and as we've spoken about Triple H telling long-term stories, I think these are all points that you just brought up that are going to tie back in terms of Finn Balor and Penta is one hell of a match, and I think that is going to be one hell of a feud and one hell of a tag team feud to go on. And I think when JD returns, JD Finn Balor versus Penta and Rey Fenix is going to be one hell of a matchup to do. I do not think this is... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, how great would the feud be if it was Penta and Finn for the IC title?
I think that's a fair point. I just think Triple H likes to let things cook, but sometimes you can't let them cook too long. And I think the time for the Judgment Day split needs to happen now. And I think the feud coming out of Mania needs to be Dominic Mysterio, your new Intercontinental Champion, versus Finn Balor.
I can't say I disagree. Because he is such a chicken shit. This is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for both the Judgment Day, but especially for Finn Balor. Because Dom has been screwing him over week after week, month after month, and Finn keeps losing out on opportunity after opportunity. And Dom and Liv keep passing it off as, oh, well, we made up for it because we got you this other opportunity. And they keep kissing the ass of Finn Balor and trying to make up for it. But it always ends in failure. This is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Yes, we will get a rematch between Dom and Braun down the line, but you know that at the end of the tunnel is Finn Balor waiting to kill Dominic Mysterio. Mark my words, Finn Balor is leaving SummerSlam with the Intercontinental Championship.
Ooh, I'll mark your words. I don't know if they're mine. I see them fighting at SummerSlam for the IC title. I don't know if I see Finn leaving with the IC title.
Let's just hope he doesn't leave with another torn labrum.
You never know. But what you should know is what match is up next, because it is a doozy. It is another triple threat. Arguably should be the main event of one of these nights. Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky versus Bianca Belair. This match has gotten a lot of hate. It has a black woman in it, so of course it's going to get hate. There's a lot of people in the world.
Everybody's jealous that she's the best woman in wrestling possibly ever. Now, I know I call Charlotte the GOAT, but Bianca is the past, present, future, and to infinity and beyond. There is nothing this woman can't do. There is no capability she doesn't have. There's no quality she doesn't possess to be a major star in this industry and any other. She is a better athlete than any other woman on the roster. She's a better storyteller than most of them. She has a stronger character and a better understanding of this industry than most. I love Bianca Belair, and I will die on that hill. Nobody can say anything negative about her around me.
Yeah, Bianca's crazy. I did not have her pen to win Elimination Chamber, and I've never been so happy to be wrong in my life. When she won, I was thrilled because Bianca had kind of taken... This woman main evented WrestleMania with Sasha Banks. This woman is technically undefeated at WrestleMania. She has the longest, I think she's actually ironically tied with Rob Van Dam for the longest win. I'm trying to look up stats. Give me 2 seconds to look this up. Rob Van Dam is 4-0 at WrestleMania. However, Rob Van Dam also lost on a pre-show of WrestleMania called Sunday Night Heat. Him and Kane lost in a tag team match at WrestleMania, and they still counted that. To this day, as well as 10, 15 years ago when talking about it, Rob Van Dam is touted as being undefeated at WrestleMania on commentary during several different events, despite the fact he lost on the pre-show. So I don't really think the pre-show counts as WrestleMania per se. It is up in the air. However, Bianca is undefeated at WrestleMania in terms of what WWE is going to bill.
Ted.
This match is impossible to call for so many reasons.
I couldn't agree more.
This match is the hardest match I think I've ever tried to call in wrestling history because every woman needs this victory. Rhea is coming off some of the strongest years. Rhea has been involved, I think, in the last 5 WrestleManias in the main event title scene. It might not be 5, it might be 4 or something like that, but to have a woman that involved in the main event scene has made her a megastar. We talked about the fact you win that title, it takes 4 or 5 years to reach that level. Rhea is at that level now. She is probably the biggest female name in the history of wrestling. Like, you have the Charlotte Flairs and you have the things like that, but no one has had this continued streak of dominance for so long. Charlotte would come in, win, and then spend 6 months out. Rhea hasn't really done that outside of one injury. She's just been dominating and dominating and dominating. You look at this, Io Sky had a match last year at WrestleMania against Bayley. And she lost.
Forgotten about in seconds.
Yeah, she lost, and now she's back once again defending the title at WrestleMania. It is pretty crazy, the fact that Io is defending world titles in back-to-back WrestleManias. Hats off to her for that because she is building up that legacy. However, she is overlooked here because you have the unstoppable force of Bianca Belair, the one who is undefeated at WrestleMania, the one who comes in and just wins, who has been on the back burner for the last few years of WWE. The last 2 or 3 WrestleManias, she hasn't been doing much. She's been focusing on tag matches or multi-person appearances, things like that. She hasn't been a primary focus because people kind of gotten... as she kind of faded, Rhea Ripley kind of took her spot as this dominating force in the women's division. And Bianca was still there, but she was very much a background contender. And now she is back in that main event scene. And her versus Rhea is insane. But then you throw in the wild card of Io Sky. And the fact she has been overlooked this entire time almost makes her need this victory. The fact that Rhea and Bianca, they are Shawn Michaels and Triple H here, and Io is the Benoit of the one who is overlooked, who needs this victory to establish herself. But if you do that, you now throw away Bianca Belair's streak of WrestleMania in a triple threat match. Rhea, who has had this dominating force, had a very embarrassing upset loss a month ago to Io. She should have just steamrolled through Io. That is what she assumed was going to happen. That's what everybody assumed was going to happen. And then she lost in an embarrassing fashion. As that top star, she needs this victory back to kind of reclaim that throne and be like, no, this was a fluke. So if she loses again to Io, that kind of reiterates the fact that maybe Rhea is not all she's cracked up to be. So you have like this mini streak versus Rhea Ripley needing to reassert her dominance versus Io, who cannot be overlooked. What do you do, Destiny, if you're booking this? What's going on?
I can't even tell you. Some things that are coming up in my mind right now are Io not being involved in the pinfall whatsoever. Like, for example, Bianca pins Rhea to become the new champion. Then that gives Io such a gripe to go after Bianca and be like, I never lost my title. Give it back. I deserve it. And that can lead to a great bout between those guys. Or, something I was thinking is, if Rhea does lose, similar to what I talked about with Drew, maybe she has a slow descent into madness and she goes crazy. She loses her mind. She snaps on anybody and everybody in her path. She breaks some arms. She breaks some backs. She cracks some skulls. I love the potential of that. I also love the idea of rewinding back to the moment that you talked about where Io did pull out that upset victory over Rhea Ripley. And like you said, Rhea just expected to steamroll her. But that's not what happened. And Io was successful. What if that happens again? And somehow, because Rhea blames Bianca for her losing the title. There's no accountability. She full on blames Bianca. But what if we revisit that in this triple threat where, for some reason or another, Bianca is the reason that Rhea gets pinned and Io retains? What if we revisit that and then we have this gorgeous one-on-one feud moving forward between the two biggest women's stars in this industry in Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair? Because there's so much to be told within that story. If Io retains, she doesn't have to defend against either one of them ever again as long as she holds the title. But then those two can go forward and butt heads through and past SummerSlam for all I care because they are that good. That's kind of how I'm seeing this being played out. I see it being a little bit of a nod to the initial title match that set this all off. And I see Io Sky retaining. However, I also see Bianca taking it just to keep that streak alive and to keep the hope alive of having an undefeated streak at WrestleMania because I miss it. I miss the Undertaker streak.
I will say the Undertaker streak is a phenomenon in itself because it was the first of its kind. So nobody paid attention to the streak until it hit like 9 or 10 or 11. And then they were like, oh shit, this is a thing. Now you're literally looking at it and she's won 3 matches and people are like, she's the next Undertaker. This is crazy. Like, the potential here is insane. And that's the downfall of if they ever tried to do another streak, everybody's going to try to see it coming from a million miles away. Which is, in my opinion, why they can never be another streak in WrestleMania history. Which ultimately is why I think Rhea Ripley pins and defeats Bianca Belair in this match. This is Ashley. I'm shooting for a Yahtzee here, and by the end of the show, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" And it's gonna be crazy.
The reason being that Io Sky has been, like you said, overlooked since she won the title. Everybody's looking past her. Everybody's looking for her to lose. And that just feeds right into exactly what everybody's been saying and everybody's been feeling. She's being overlooked once again and she's not even involved in the finish? Come on.
I think that's fair, but I think I have a reason. There's a method to my madness here. And I think Bianca's post-WrestleMania is going to be involved in terms of Bianca, Naomi, or Bianca and Jade. I think they're going to retie Bianca into that fold after Mania, and I think that's where her focus is going to be. And as I said with Jade, I don't want her in the title picture until WrestleMania next year. And so I don't want Bianca to leave as the champion. I think Io...
That is so fair.
I think Io loses her title here without being involved in the finish, and that is why Io Rhea is your feud moving forwards past Mania in a singles feud where Io chases Rhea for her championship. Which I have more to say, but I will hold on to that for now.
I have to say, I definitely am taking back a couple of my words because Bianca does need to be reinserted into the Jade Naomi story.
And I think putting the exclamation on the fact that the streak is over for Bianca, because if you try to build this undefeated streak, if Bianca wins here, the streak becomes 4-0 and it really solidifies. And it gets to the point where almost every time Bianca is in a WrestleMania match, it's essentially a spoiler at that point. Because why build her up to 4-0, 5-0, 6-0 if you're not going to reach Undertaker levels of 10-0, 12-0? So it essentially becomes a spoiler, and until she gets towards the end of her career, she's not going to lose. And so you need to kind of nip that in the bud now in order to keep Bianca interesting moving forward at WrestleMania. It is always, this is why Ric Flair is one of the greatest of all times, is because he could lose on any night. Ric Flair could be facing a Joe Blow nobody, and he could still lose the match because he would sometimes. And that's what always made Ric Flair interesting, is you never know when his arrogance was going to cost him. And I think the worst thing they could do for Bianca is have her win this match and continue that streak for that exact reason.
I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So do you have anything else to add?
No. Now, you keep saying you have more to talk about, but you're going to hold your tongue. Are you saving that for the Q&A, or are you saving that for next episode?
Oh, no, I'll save that for the Q&A.
Okie dokie. Let's do it.
All right. So, last match announced. There could be a tag team match announced on SmackDown. I'm still kind of maybe holding out hope for that. There's been rumors. There's the ladder match that is going to be a multi-man tag team match. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. But honestly, you never know. The only reason I don't want it to happen is because so many matches have been added last minute with no build that it's almost a joke at this point that the night before WrestleMania, they're like, here's another one. But if there's a match that could get away with it, it's the SmackDown Tag Team Championships because they've had so much build going into this between teams.
You took the words right out of my mouth because the build is absolutely there. It's just not towards a specific goal yet, other than the tag team titles.
So, the most terrifying match of all time, Airbrush Cody Rhodes versus what the fuck is that face John Cena.
How dare you?
I hate this poster so much. I'm excited for this match.
Cody looks like that.
No, look at Cena. What is
Cena
this?
Cena does not look like that. He looks like AI. I'm not going to lie to you. I absolutely see it with Cena, but Cody is that handsome.
This is going to be insane.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for anything and everything they're going to throw at us, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm so excited for it. This is why this match right here is the reason I'm going to WrestleMania this year. John Cena has been my favorite since I started watching 15 years ago, and he's been my hero, and he's still my hero. I don't care what he calls me on TV. I don't care what's happening. That is my guy, and I will stand by him. To be fair, I am a huge Cody fan. I love Cody. I love that they've strapped the rocket to him and made him the face of the company. But Cena is and always will be my guy, and I want to see him win number 17.
I find everything you're saying fair. I think if anybody deserves 17, it's John Cena. I do love Cody Rhodes. I think he's done one hell of a job this past year as champion, and I think it's kind of poetic that you could chapter his first title reign at the 1 year mark. Not exactly, but very close. At least from coast to coast, WrestleMania to WrestleMania. Because at WrestleMania, it will be John Cena capturing his 17th world title. And there's a reason I think this. But Miss Destiny Diamond, I will let you kind of say your closing thoughts on this match and anything you didn't get to say, and then I'm going to tie all my other thoughts together.
Well, my first thing is I would like to reference this. This is our texting chat. When I sent you a picture that I got WrestleMania tickets, and I said, the GOAT only wins a 17th World Championship once. And you said, you're gonna be pissed when Cody retains then, LOL. So, would you like me to go into my final thoughts on this match? Or would you like to tell why you flip-flopped on your predictions, sir?
I didn't flip-flop on my predictions. I just wanted to piss you off. I've had an idea brewing for a while now, and it kind of conflicts with something else I've talked about earlier. And ultimately, this is the most Hail Mary insane thing you'll ever hear in your life, but I think it could be true. And if I get it right, your boy's going to be famous by how crazy this prediction is. So,
all right.
Give your
final thoughts. Are you doing yours first, or am I doing mine?
Go ahead and give yours.
All right. Now, I don't have anything big. I'm not going to sell it like I have anything big. But here's my thoughts, right? It is WrestleMania, and it is John Cena's final WrestleMania. It is not his final match. And if you are going to give this man a 17th world title run, you better make it mean something. When he tied Ric Flair's 16th championship reign, it lasted from one pay-per-view to the next, and it was done. I wouldn't even call it a month. I don't know how many days it was, but I can tell you it was not long enough. If you're going to have a history-making title reign, you better make it mean something. And if Cena is going to win number 17, it's not going to be at Money in the Bank. It's not even going to be at SummerSlam, and it will not be at Survivor Series. It will be on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania, and it will be a long and historic title reign. He will face many a people. He may not defend it all the time, but he will be the champion. And it will be better than his last, and probably even the one before that, because this is a John Cena we've never seen before. This is John Cena as a heel, and we're going to see him wrestle for the first time as a heel at WrestleMania. What tricks is he going to pull out? We don't know. Is he just going to continue to be Cena the way that he's said he is? Because he's not dressing up as us, we're dressing up as him? I don't know how this match is going to play with him in this new era of his career. With that being said, one thing that I want to put out there is the involvement of The Rock. He will be at Mania, you mark my words. Will he be in the corner of Cena? Will he come out mid-match? Will he screw Cena? Will he join Cody? Will we have a double swerve where Cody turns heel, aligns with The Rock, making another babyface John Cena because nobody ever hated him to begin with? What's gonna happen? I don't know, but I know that it ends with Cena holding that championship high.
I would like to touch on the fact you just mentioned The Rock. If you smell what I'm cooking. Because The Rock and John Cena shook hands, right? They are a team, and Travis Scott, for some fucking reason, are a team. But we have not heard The Rock mentioned. I think Cody name dropped him one time since this happened, and it's been forgotten about and swept under the rug. But if there is one thing I know, it is the fact that The Rock is one of the biggest egotists in the history of this company. It is the fact that nobody loves... Oh my God! Randy Orton versus Stone Cold. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Get out!
That would be wild! The Rock is one of the biggest egotists in the history of wrestling. He shows up every time he has the opportunity to do so, to kind of suckle off some spotlight, and I think there's no difference to that here. But I think the fact he has not been mentioned has been on purpose, because they want this moment to be special. And I think Cody needs to lose clean. Clean in the sense that there's no outside interference. Cena can cheat to win. He can use the brass and the word life knuckles, whatever you want to do. That doesn't matter. But Cody needs to lose this one-on-one against Cena. Because Cody needs a loss to remind people, to remind himself that he is not superhuman, that there are chinks in his armor. He has pushed his body to the limits throughout this past year, and it is time for him to learn, the same way Seth Rollins learned last year, that you are not immortal and you do have limits. Seth lost his title last year because he overlooked his championship match because he thought he was Superman. And Cody is going to do the same thing here, where he look at the brutal matches he had against Kevin Owens, against AJ Styles. This entire year, he has decimated his body further and further and further, and this is when it is going to come back to bite him. And when Cena wins, I think this is the moment The Rock's ego is going to capitalize on this moment, and Triple H is going to say, how can we take this moment and make it even bigger and have it not just be about The Rock? And I think this is when the New World Order takes over. And I'm not talking about Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. I am talking about The Rock, John Cena, Seth Rollins, Rhea Ripley, and Drew McIntyre standing tall at the end of WrestleMania. I am talking about all of the names I have mentioned here. Every time I've said I will touch base on this later. Rhea, in a very heelish maneuver, beat Io in her match. Didn't beat Io. She beat the other opponent. So Io, you have the lovable babyface chasing after her title that she never lost fairly. But Rhea defeating who should be the favorite going into the match, upsetting the audience. Every time I have mentioned this person should win, it is to upset the audience in a way. I think Drew McIntyre is going to embarrass Damian Priest. I think Seth Rollins is going to steal the victory at WrestleMania. And I think The Rock is going to surround himself with these powerful individuals. He doesn't surround himself with losers. The Rock is going to surround himself with the winners of WrestleMania, with the New World Order, in the most dominant showing of a faction since Hogan teamed with Nash and Hall. And I think it is going to rock the foundation of the WWE to its core, because you are going to have 5 of the biggest stars of all time together, and most of them as champions, and who the hell is going to rise up to defeat them? When the people that they lost to was Bianca Belair, Damian Priest, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk are the ones who were the losers to these individuals at WrestleMania. Who the hell can hope to stand up against them? Mic drop.
The hell? What if the name of this stable is called Rock the Foundation?
I'm fine with it. I don't know what they will name this thing, but I do think I kind of been toying around with the idea of what if Paul Heyman does turn and side with Seth Rollins, but if Seth Rollins then turns on Paul Heyman the following night and joins with The Rock instead. I think it would be glorious. I've kind of had that idea in the back of my mind, and I remember at the beginning of the year, people were talking about almost a new DX-like stable formed between Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, and how those two should be teaming up. And I've had that idea at the back of my head, and I've had the idea of Rhea she can't be this badass solo force, and she needs to have a different direction. She needs to do something different and show a different facet of her character, because the crowd is starting to turn on her right now, and she needs to get ahead of that before she gets Charlotte flared, before she gets what happened to Bianca Belair. And she needs to get ahead of that now. And I think this is one hell of a way to do that, is to make the audience hate her. Have her dominate at WrestleMania, have the audience turn against her in that moment, and the next night she sells her soul to The Rock. And the same thing happens with Drew McIntyre, and the same thing happens with Seth Rollins. And now you have literally 4 dominating stars partnering with The Rock. And they have the backing, and it is now up to Triple H. Because who the hell can Triple H assemble to take on The Rock's guys to bring him down? Any last thoughts on WrestleMania that we didn't touch upon, Miss Destiny Diamond?
I just found 2 things that I noted that one of them is less important than the other. One of them was Bayley pinned Liv this past Monday on Raw. There was lots of interference. That to me just obviously extra solidified that the tag champs are retaining at Mania.
Yeah.
Not that I thought Bayley and Lyra had a prayer anyway, but Raw just solidified it. Something I forgot to mention earlier on, talking about the main event of night 1. Seth hit Roman Reigns in the back with a steel chair, exactly like he did when the Shield broke up. Same chair shot. They were standing in the exact same position in the ring. The camera angle was the same, and that is how Raw went off the air this past week. And I think that that is something that is very poetic going into WrestleMania this week.
I definitely agree, and I think Seth is going to be the one standing tall on SmackDown as well. I think that's a weird prediction to have, but I think they're going to double up to have people really think, okay, Seth stood tall on Raw, he stood tall on SmackDown, he cannot win at WrestleMania. But Roman's star power and Punk's star power is strong enough that they can afford a loss and still be huge. And the fact that if they go out of Mania feuding with each other, they can... that hatred towards each other can then be fueled from that loss. It can build into the story, and neither will be hurt from it. And that is how you make and ratify and continue to have stars. Whereas if Seth loses at Mania and they don't have something big for him planned after this, he dwindles. And Seth is at the point right now where he's not on the level of Roman Reigns or CM Punk, but he is so close. His whole career has been very stop and start. Like, he's the hottest thing, and then he's not. He's the hottest thing, and then he's not. And he's at that point right now where he has a support from a lot of people. He needs that extra little spark, and a lot of people think that's going to come from Paul Heyman. I think it comes from their New World Order. The Rock the Foundation.
One more thought that just popped into my brain. We talked about Bayley needing to get her mojo back. What if she is also standing with them? Now, obviously, she didn't win, but what if somehow she aligns herself with them? What better way to make Bayley relevant?
See, I don't know in terms... I like the idea of Bayley being involved with the group, but I also... I made the group with the standpoint of The Rock wants...
doesn't surround himself with losers.
Yeah, The Rock wants the strongest of the strong. He has cherry-picked the people who can dominate, and the reason why Seth and Drew McIntyre are there is because Seth Rollins has been the one from the beginning who has Roman Reigns' number, and we talked about that. And nobody has the hatred for Roman Reigns like Drew McIntyre. And the fact that both men also hate CM Punk, who would probably be the opposing force against The Rock, who hates The Rock. And so, like, surrounding himself with both men, and the fact that when The Rock came back, we also talked about this, WrestleMania 40 Night 1, Seth Rollins was the one who had their number the entire match. Seth almost cost them that match. If there was one who was going to beat The Rock, it was Seth Rollins that night. And I think he kind of understood that. And then you look at night 2 of WrestleMania 40, Seth is the reason Cody won that match, and he did it without lifting a finger. He got hit twice and somehow cost Roman that victory. That is next level thinking. And I think that's why he wants Seth. And Drew McIntyre is this ultimate force. He's supposed to be like the Batista of this group in terms of evolution, right? He is the muscle. He is the power behind the throne. He's the one that I can promise him an opportunity and give him direction, and he can get the job done. Because The Rock is on the board of directors. So The Rock can shape the WWE the way that he wants, whereas Triple H has to now fight back control of his own company. And now you have Triple H teaming with, not teaming in ring standpoint, but in that Rock figurehead where he wants control of his own company again. And he's looking at guys like CM Punk, right? At Randy Orton, at Kevin Owens. Like, who defends the WWE at that point? And that is when you make new megastars. That is when the Braun Breaker steps up and you have Braun Breaker Drew McIntyre. Like, those are the moments that's how you create the future. And I think they teased a couple years ago, they teased last year going into WrestleMania 40 when it was going to be The Rock versus Roman, the biggest main event ever. Triple H came out and he cut a promo where he said, like, you need to learn how to play the game if you smell what I'm cooking, or something like that. It was a direct shot at The Rock that was like, this is my show, this isn't yours. And they've kind of teased tension between those two at the press conference where Cody and Seth kind of backed each other up and went nose to nose with The Rock and Roman. The Rock went backstage and had that face-to-face with Triple H. And they've had those tensions with each other this whole time, and all the backstage reports have been reporting how these two hate each other and should hate each other, and they can't agree, and they keep overstepping each other, and that is when you play into those dirt sheets, and these two are professional enough that they can make magic. And I think that's how we do it.
Yeah, you're right. The Rock would never pick Bayley. No, not a loser like Bayley.
No, Bayley's too good. I agree with that. Bayley would rise above. We're going to get Bayley Hugger coming back, and she's going to be the one to beat Rhea. I'm so glad you brought that up. Now, I put Q&A here, not because we actually have questions from you guys, but because we want them. This is where we get to the end of the video. We record these on Mondays or Tuesdays, and they get uploaded on Wednesdays or Thursdays. We still haven't kind of decided, but we got a whole week of wrestling between this upload and the recording of the next episode. So in the meantime, if you see anything you want us to talk about, or if you have any points you want us to respond to, type them in the comments down below. You can respond to us on Twitter or X, or you can also join the Discord. All of that will be linked in the comment down below and also on the main page of the channel. So be sure to be leaving your questions or responding to ours and letting us know, and we will highlight it in this section to end off the videos when we finish talking about all the wrestling news that we want to bring up. This was a hell of a doozy for episode 1. Our recording is 3 hours long. Crazy! I don't think future episodes are going to be nearly this long, and for you guys, this episode's probably like an hour and 20 minutes. I tend to cut a lot. I'm pretty good at that. But you never know. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. We do appreciate. Miss Destiny, do you have anything you want to say to close off the night?
As always, I am here to remind you to make sure you are, in fact, an organ donor on your driver's license. Be sparkly, be yourself, and just like our podcast says, believe wrestling, believe in the Shield.
Believe wrestling, believe in dudes with attitudes. When's the last time you saw Diesel and Shawn Michaels on a shirt together? That's amazing. That is incredible. One of my favorite team-ups, honestly. Like, these two and Roman Reigns Undertaker. Like, that's it. That's everything. That's all I wanted.
Also, when you said that the New World Order was coming back and you said, and I'm not talking Hulk Hogan and Diesel and Scott Hall, I was going to say, well, I would hope not Scott Hall because that would be a zombie.
That's messed up, dog. That is so messed up. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, be true, be you, be colorblind. Keep those cans of Coke Zero nearby, and believe in yourself. Believe in the Shield, I guess. And believe in wrestling.